Welcome to the Idiot's Guide. I'm Mackie Hall, and today we're going to be using Artbrush to create insane letter shapes. This is a great technique to add art or specific shapes into your letter shapes, but it's also a great launching pad into creating some really cool letter-based logos. This is what we're going to be working on today. Let's not waste any more time. Let's go. All right, let's get started. Let's create a new document. Our new document will have a width of 1,000 points, a height of 1,000 points, a single artboard, and we'll have an RGB color mode. Click Create. Before we get started, I want to remind you that we're using the Essentials layout that can be found at the top right of your window, and we're using Smart Guides that can be found by selecting View, Smart Guides. First thing we'll do is we'll select our rectangle tool. We'll start at the top left of our page and we'll drag down to the bottom right. Once we've done that, we'll select a black fill and we'll have a transparent stroke. Next, we'll select Object, Lock, Selection. That ensures we've got a black background that's immovable. Next step, we'll select our Type tool. We'll click anywhere on our page, and before we start typing, we're going to make sure that we've got a white stroke and a transparent fill. Once that's done, we'll write PS. Next, we'll select all of our type and change our character to Bebus and change our type size to 400 points. If you don't have Bebus, it's available for free download at fontsquirrel.com. Next, we'll grab our selection tool and we'll center our letter set horizontally and vertically. For reference purposes, we are going to copy and paste in front our letter set. We're going to hold our Shift key and arrow it down to the bottom of our page, just like that. Again, this is only for reference. Next step, we'll select our main letter set. We're going to right-click and select Create Outlines. That's going to change our type to Shapes. Next, we'll right-click once again, select Ungroup. That takes our shapes and again makes each shape individual. Now since we're using Artbrush, we're only concerned with the center stroke of each type shape. How we get those center strokes varies just a little bit between the P and the S. And the reason is because the P is called a closed character and the S is an open character. We'll start with the S first. We'll select our direct selection tool and we are going to drag over the end lines of our S and delete. Once that's done, we'll grab our selection tool and we will right click and select Release Compound Path. That makes the paths of the S independent. Next step is we'll select our blend tool and we're going to click on the end anchor points of each line. Once that's done, we'll double click on our blend tool and we'll change our spacing to specified steps and we'll make sure that specified step is 1. Preview if you want, click OK. Once we've done that, we want to take our blend stroke and turn it into an actual stroke. We'll do this by selecting our type, selecting Object, Expand. Click on OK. And note that the blend stroke is now a physical stroke. Next step, we'll right click and select Ungroup. Now all 3 lines are independent. What we want to do next is we want to select our outer stroke and our inner stroke and delete. We're done with the S. Now the P, like I'd mentioned, is slightly different. What we want to do here is we want to give the P an end. The way we'll do that is we'll grab our direct selection tool and we'll drag across the inside of our type shape just like that. We'll delete that. We'll then again keep our direct selection tool selected. We'll click off the shape and then we'll click on the top and bottom inside anchor points. So you'll click here, you'll hold your Shift key down and click on your bottom anchor point of your P. Next, you'll select Object, Path, Join. All right, we're almost all set. Next, we'll drag across the bottom line of our P just like that, and we will delete. Next step, we'll grab our selection tool, We'll click on our path, we'll right click on it and select Release Compound Path. Again, that takes the parallel paths and makes them independent. We'll grab our blend tool, and once again we'll click on the end anchor points of our character. Next, we'll double click on our blend tool. We'll make sure our spacing is specified steps. We've got one step. We can preview it if we want. We'll click OK. Click Object, Expand, and we'll click OK. Once we're done with that, we're going to right click on our path, or we're going to select it and then right click on it if it's deselected, and we'll select Ungroup. Now that we've got our center stroke, all we need to do is delete the outside and the inside stroke. We'll do that by clicking and dragging across our top stroke, holding our Shift key, and do the same thing. Click and drag across our bottom stroke and delete. Let's get working on our Artbrush shape. We'll grab our pen tool, and what we want to do here before we start drawing with our pen tool is we just want to create a line that's approximately the same length as our P and the S. So I'll start here. I'll hold my Shift key down to make sure it is perfectly horizontal, and I'll drag out about 500 points. Doesn't need to be perfect, that's about right there. Once I've done that, I'll grab my Select tool, and then I will open up my stroke window. Mine's already open, but if yours is not open, you can go to Window, Stroke, and open it. We're going to increase the stroke from 1 point to 5 points. Also note that my stroke is white in case you haven't done that already. Now that we've got our stroke, we want to make sure that our art brush is approximately as wide as the actual letter. What we want to really do here is keep the integrity of the letter. So we're going to duplicate and move our strokes until we've got a thickness that's approximately matching the original letters themselves. Again, I'll drag across my stroke. I'll copy and paste in front. I'll hold my Shift key down and I'll arrow up once. When I hold my Shift key down, it moves elements in 10-point increments instead of 1-point increments. I'm going to repeat that 2 more times. Once that's done, I'll select all my stroke lines. I'll select Object, Expand. What I'm doing right now is I'm going to change my stroke lines to filled shapes. Click OK, and note that my lines, if I zoom in, are actually now filled shapes. Next step is let's start building this shape out. We do it easily with the rectangle tool. I'll click on my rectangle tool, and I'll start at the front of my shape, just about like that. I'll hover over my top path, and then I'll drag over until I'm over my bottom path. Again, using smart guides is hugely helpful in this case. Once I'm done with that, I'll click off my shape. Again, we'll select our rectangle tool, and we'll just start drawing rectangles at random throughout. Once we're done with that, we'll select our selection tool. We'll drag across our entire shape set just like that, and we'll go to our Pathfinder window. If yours is not open, you can select Window, Pathfinder. Next step, we'll select Unite. Note that our shape set has now turned into a single shape. Next, we'll grab our Direct Selection tool, and note when we do that, all of the bevel points for our shape appear. We'll start with the front of our shape. We'll drag across the front of our shape. We'll grab the bevel point, and we'll drag all the way in just like that. Once we're done with that, we're going to drag across the rest of our shape, and we're going to find any bevel point, and we will drag that in. Since all of them are highlighted, note that all of them are affected. We'll click off of our shape, and we'll zoom out. Next step is we are going to go to Outlines. This will help us see the shape elements without being distracted by color. Let's zoom into the front of our shape, and we'll work our way to the back. We'll start with the top. We'll drag across the front anchor points, and we'll just arrow them forward, holding our Shift key, just like that. Start with the middle, again, arrow it to wherever you'd like, maybe like that. And we'll go to the bottom. I think that's a good start right there. We'll click off of it. We'll zoom out. We'll move to the back. Note that when I move to the back, all I'm doing is pressing my space bar, and that allows me to click and drag where I need to go. Next, let's randomize these end points right here. Start with the top. Maybe move that out just one. Move our next line in just a little bit, and we'll move our bottom line in just a little bit as well, just like that. Let's zoom out to see the entire page, and let's go back to live view. I think we're all set. Let's make our art brush. We'll grab our select tool and click on our shape. Once we've done that, we'll go to our brushes window. If you don't see that, again, select window, brushes. Let's click on the right menu and select new brush. Once we've done that, let's select Artbrush as our brush type. We'll click OK. Let's name our new brush Wave. And let's keep our width fixed. Again, we want to make sure that the width of our brush matches the width of our letter set. Next, we want to make sure we stretch our shape to fit the stroke length, and we'll leave the rest of our preferences alone. We'll click OK. Note that our wave brush now appears in our brush menu. Let's click on our S and let's click on our new brush. Note that our brush appears in place of the stroke. Let's do the same thing with the P. I like the way the P looks. It looks like water breaking, so I'll select this shape. Go to Object, Expand Appearance. That turns it from a brushed stroke to a completed shape that we can edit. I want to change the direction of the brush on my S. So what I'll do is I'll select my S and then double click on my brush. Under Options, I'll select Flip Along. I can select Preview if I want and click OK. Select Apply to Strokes if need be. It doesn't matter. Once we're done with that, we'll click off of our shape. That looks pretty good. We'll click on our stroke. And once again, we'll select Object, Expand Appearance. Now we've got two completed shapes. Now that we're done with that, we don't need our brush template anymore or our letter template right here. So we'll select both of those and delete. We're almost done now. Let's color it out. Let's select both the P and the S, and we will double click on our gradient tool. Once we've done that, let's click on the default gradient. What we want to do here is we want to create a blue to green gradient. The way we do that is we'll double click on our first gradient slider point. We'll change the color preferences from grayscale to RGB, and then we'll select a green that works. That's pretty good right there. Next, we'll click on our second gradient slider point. We'll double click on it. We'll change our color preferences from grayscale to RGB, and then we'll find a blue that works. That looks pretty good right there. Once we've done that, with our piece still selected and our gradient tool still selected, we'll click and drag out at the top of our letter shape, holding our Shift key down until we get the gradient we're looking for. That looks about right there. Next up, we'll grab our selection tool, we'll click off of it, and there is our logo. Let's finish this out by adding one more bit of type. We'll grab our type tool, we'll click anywhere underneath PS, we'll change our fill color to white and our stroke to transparent. We'll change our type size to 50 points, and we'll write Project Surf. Once we're done with that, we'll select all of our type. We'll open up our type tool. If you don't see that, you can go Window, Type, Character, and let's change the tracking to 100. Next, we'll grab our Select tool, and using our direction keys, let's align our P with the bottom of the logo P. Right click on our text, change to create outlines, select everything, group it, and then once again center horizontally and center vertically. Deselect, and we are all done. So there you have it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments section below. Otherwise, drop me a like. I'd really appreciate that. I'd really appreciate it even more if you subscribed and checked out even more of my videos. I'll see you next time. See you.